rewind. Feels so nice. We time. You, I know how to make me feel right. I can't help how. Got this sweet talk. I'm already on my way. I'm pulling up, don't be late. I'm cutting through all the lanes. Sweet talk. You need to say less to me. No need for no flowers, babe. I'm already on my way, on my way. Why you blushing? Yeah, sweet concussion. Oh, you miss my touching. Good do. Show me something. Give me more than one thing. I need more than less than I do. Say you're a good guy. Make me believe it. Don't wanna hear it. I wanna see it. See how. Rewind. When we rewind, it feels so nice. I can't help how. Got this sweet talk. I'm already on my way. I'm pulling up, don't be late. I'm cutting through all the lanes. Sweet talk. You need to say less to me. No need for no flowers, babe. I'm already on my way, on my way. We've been dancing all night long. Right here with you way too long. Don't want nothing here or now. But I'm done waiting, done wasting my time. Got this sweet talk. I'm already on my way. I'm pulling up, don't be late. I'm cutting through all the lanes. Sweet talk. You need to say less to me. No need for no flowers, babe. I'm already on my way, on my way.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. You're watching Let Your Voices Be Heard podcast show. And we're live at the studio at Hub 17 in Staten Island, New York. Thank you for tuning in. And as always, if you can't tune in and catch the live, please catch the replay. We have different platforms for you to do so. We are on YouTube channel. Instagram, Facebook, and of course, we are on Spotify. So you could catch us on Spotify, and all you have to do is go into search and type in the name and Let Your Voices Be Heard podcast show. So you catch all of these recordings and, of course, all of these amazing um, interviews. So thank you guys for watching. And also, this is our first episode of our 5-part series of 50 plus and fabulous. So yes, it's going to be amazing. We have so many people lined up and so many amazing women that are going to be a part of this series. So we're excited about it. And we wanted to go ahead and create a series of women of our age group because we have so much to say. We have so many things to say, and we have so many experiences and knowledge. And, we're not the same people as we were 20 years ago. So we want to be able to share that. And whoever's watching, young, old, yeah, we want to be able to create that and be able to have that type of group out there. So 50 plus and fabulous. This is our first episode of a 5-part series, and it's being recorded right here at the Hub 17. So, yes. So we're going to move on, and we want to go ahead and give a couple of shout outs. We want to give a shout out to our small businesses. And, because we promote and we help support small businesses locally and, of course, throughout the tri-state and the 5 boroughs of New York. Small business is the backbone of our small business world in the community. So we have to support it. I'm always supporting them. I'm a small business myself, and of course our guests are as well, and their entrepreneurship. So shout out to Green Stinger. Make sure I get their name right. Green Stinger Beekeeping, Nick Rozak. Nick Rozak. Hey, Nick. I haven't seen you in a while, but I see you what you've been doing. And he just came out with a children's book. And the children's book, let me see, it's called The Plastic Tree and His Friends. And it's about beekeeping, okay? And it's amazing. His book just came out in February of this year. You could find the book on Amazon. So just go there to Amazon and just type in the the plastic tree and his friends. It's a really cute book. It talks about beekeeping and it talks about the environment and what it is to be a beekeeper. So shout out to Nick Rozak of Green Stinger Beekeeping. He is a local beekeeper here in Staten Island. And we want to go ahead and help support our small businesses out there. So shout out to Nick. And congratulations on the release of the book. Very happy for you, and I hope it is much, much success. So, moving on to the next. Let me see. So, yes, like I said, we're going to be doing this is our first episode of the 50 Plus and Fabulous. And I hope you guys are going to be watching because it's going to be very interesting. We're going to be covering a lot of different topics. And of course, today, for the first episode that we are doing, we're covering mental health, right? Which is anger is a strong emotion, which I really believe that it is a very strong emotion because it can lead down to a lot of different paths. And, but it's different. It's different from what it is anger from an adolescent or younger person to what it is how we handle anger now in our age group. So it's very, very different from, everybody has different ways of handling the anger, right? But I think as you get older, you tend to basically know either how to handle it or it just goes crazy haywire. So we're gonna talk about those things, and I want to go ahead and introduce our guests today for our first 50 plus and fabulous. These women are amazing, and I want to go ahead and have them introduce themselves. So go ahead.
Pick me first.
Yes.
I am Caren Cooper. I am a trauma-informed mindset coach, and I help midlife women entrepreneurs, break free from self-doubt and the imposter syndrome, and that leaves them on the hamster wheel of mediocrity. I have a program that I do that called Unscrew Yourself, and that helps you also reconnect to your unique badass self so that you can finally get the success that you deserve. So that is what I do for a living. I'm also a mom of two who are 22 and 18, so I completely can relate to this emotion.
Yeah. I'm sure you can. They can't get under our skin, but we gotta love them, right?
Yes.
Definitely. Thank you, Karen, for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, definitely. And
I don't even know how to follow that. Unscrew yourself. I love it. My name is Mayra Sanchez, and I'm the owner and coach for Dragon Lifestyle. My business grew just as a natural stepping stone for me because I had so many difficult places and episodes in my life that led me to downward spiral. So I had mental health issues, physical issues, and financial issues. So in essence, I went through a process of self-healing, and the cornerstone of my business is all based on martial arts and traditional Chinese medicine as a holistic system that allows us to really get to the deeper roots of
yes.
the things that create such self-harm in our
Right,
lives.
right.
So I really focus on getting people fit for life. That's been my focus for myself. No matter what age, what stage, what circumstance I find myself, I'm all about creating a healthy, happy, peaceful life experience daily. So martial arts has been very, very helpful for me in that regard, and I love helping people optimize whatever circumstances they find so they can also be fit for life.
Yeah. Mental health is also fitness that we have to practice, right?
That's right.
Mental health,
Definitely.
mindfulness. Yeah.
Yes, definitely, because you control the mind, you control the body.
Right.
So a lot of people, they seem to forget that sometimes because it is your health, mental health. And I think emotional health is something that we have to focus more on. So many things that are happening in the world today, right now. It's just a lot of chaos happening, and it's like either at work, at home, children, family, and even in the street, especially in New York. New York is crazy.
Social media.
Social media, yeah. Social media plays a big role in that,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why I decided I wanted to really talk about that because it does affect in every aspect of our life. And it's so important to be able to, and I hope anybody that listens to this today, I hope that you're able to take away something positive from that. And, we want to go ahead and see the perspective on that and see how people perceive these emotions. Because, they say, especially women, right? I think women, sometimes we could get into a crazy emotional stage. And it's always usually somebody that's tugging on that, and making you pissed off, And it's just like, how you handle that, and it's just, it has different levels. Anger, I believe, it has different levels of emotion, right? Because you can have, let's start talking about it. What lies underneath that emotion, that strong emotion that comes over you? What triggers it? It could be so many different levels of it, but what really lies underneath that emotion?
Well, I think, it's interesting because I was saying before we started the show about this a little bit, but I think anger is also in a way a form of communication because it's we're not getting some need met or expectation met.
Right.
And so therefore, a lot of times we react poorly because of that. And instead of actually saying, well, I didn't get my needs met or I was expecting this to happen, it shows up as anger.
Yeah.
In some instances. I know it did for me for different in different ways and different reasons. Especially when I was younger and didn't have mindfulness and didn't do personal development. And I would be raging, I'd be pissed, and I would scream and I would shout, and it was like proving energy. Like I was like proving myself, defending myself and being right, and like I wanted it a certain way, and anger came from that. So I think and I think for everybody, the trigger could be different.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I know like it was anger, and then it would rage, and I'd be like and it would like I would stew.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times when we're angry and pissed off and enraged, we stew on it,
Yeah.
which doesn't help. I know now it doesn't help, but it was way fun when I was doing it. Not gonna lie about it. I was like, I'll just stew for days, and I'll just relive the event over and over and over and over again. But what I didn't know was how poorly it was affecting my body and my mind and my health and everything.
Yeah.
I didn't know that then. I didn't know that in my 20s and even my 30s, and even when I started personal development in my late 40s.
Yeah.
So like I didn't know any of that, and so my body was so constricted, and I was so like
Yeah.
all the time, and I didn't know that was the reason.
Yeah.
So like when you feel like blech,
Yeah.
sometimes it may also be because you're withholding or stuffing down, because we were taught that, in this age group, we're like, no, you stuff down the emotions, you're not allowed to feel them.
Right.
And now I think a lot of us are starting to feel them.
Yeah, definitely. I think so. I think we were also taught in earlier years, from our parents. Well, I can't speak for everybody, but, it's like, no, you can't. It's like when a child throws a fit, and it's like, they get pissed off. And you don't understand why is that child getting pissed off, because they're just expressing that emotion at the moment, but they're not expressing it with words because they're children, right? And sometimes I feel like as adults, we kind of do the same thing still, because it's like you're expressing that emotion, but you just don't find the words to say that and to say why you're pissed off.
If I may interject here for a moment.
Please do.
I think what was really beneficial and helpful for me to grasp emotions in action was to really go back to babies.
Yeah.
Emotions are just energy in motion, and in essence, babies when they're born, they are just naturally doing what is absolutely
what they need to do.
Innate.
Yeah.
What's innate. Exactly. It's innate in us, and they don't know what's right and what's wrong. It's all right,
Right.
because they're outlets for the energy that's being experienced, and they are communicating with their parents and their families in the context that they can.
Right.
The issue is that we all get taught how to process that energy and emotion, like what each thing means,
Right.
and it may or may not be accurate.
Yeah.
But then you learn from society and you learn from family, okay, this is right, this is wrong, and then you start living and making all these other decisions based on trying to fit that
Right.
box of what's right and wrong. And for me, one of the major things that I learned about myself, as you talked about, like what's behind that,
Right.
what was behind my anger was sadness. But sadness was not something that was allowed in my family,
Right.
as to be expressed, to be discussed, to be
Right.
be seen. So I didn't even know what to do with that feeling.
Right.
And because I observed anger, I thought, okay,
Right. That's
anger
for
is
you.
okay. Anger is approved of. Now, the other complex things about my family is that there were males, rules for the males and rules for the females.
Yes.
So
That's
it
a
was
lot of
okay
us,
for the
yeah.
boys to be angry, but if I was angry,
yeah.
I was a bee, or I was trying to be a boy, or, it gets very complex, very convoluted.
Yeah.
And the more time goes on, the more complex and convoluted, and all these extra layers get added on to something that's natural.
Yeah.
And when you finally get into the space of, I've gone as far as I can go, everything is unmanageable and a mess, then you got to detangle
Yeah.
all those thoughts and ideas and discover that there are things that are right in the moment.
Right.
There are things that are right for a lifetime.
Right.
There are things that are right only in the context of this culture. There are things that are only right in this in this community, you know, it's so complex.
It can
Right.
be, yeah.
And we don't always know how to process that complexity. That's
Right.
really the main thing. We all need to be heard, and we have to hear ourselves so that so that our inner sage
Yes.
can, in essence,
Right.
start to detangle what we created in our own minds.
Right.
Because
Yes.
I can never know what's in someone else's mind fully, but they know
Right.
Exactly.
if they listen to themselves and process
Yes.
little
And-
by little.
And one of the things you just said, if I may talk about that, when you were talking about rewiring and you know, and decompress and, you know, looking at it from the child, you know, from all the way back, like layering, you know, taking
Yeah.
apart the layers and things like that. That's actually part of what I do. Is that exactly what I do?
Yes.
Is in fact that, because where did it come from? Because it came from somewhere. To your point, it could be society. It could be myriad of different things. But where did that anger come from, and that we stored it and things like that? And when we're like, okay, to the point of like, well, we need to address this, and I would like to figure this out because I can't go on. I'm sick and tired of living this way. That's exactly what I do. Is we go back and we rewire and we look at what happened, and then we reprogram.
Right.
You know, and then you become. That's why I say when I talk about connecting back. To your unique better self. But Marcy, when I just want to address one more thing, and then you can ask the next question. When you talk about temper tantrums,
Mm-hmm.
it got me to realize something as well. So I'm a recovering codependent people pleaser control freak. That was one of the things I recognized when I started my own mindset work.
Right.
And I actually had a boundaries coach. So I had someone help me, you know, set boundaries, and because I didn't have any as a people pleaser, you do everything for everybody else. Long story short, one of the ways she told me
Right.
to express my rage and because I'm huge, like anger is very prevalent still in my body, but I can recognize it. But
Right.
she was just like temper tantrum. She goes,
Yeah.
you know, temper tantrum technique is actually what she called it.
Right.
She's
right.
like, when you're really pissed off and you just need to get stuff out, throw a temper tantrum. And I'm like,
oh my
that
God.
may be the best thing I ever heard in my whole life.
I don't think
and I
anybody
gotta be
wants to
honest
see
with
me
you,
throw a temper tantrum.
But I do it in you know, in my own home.
yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like punching a pillow, you know what I mean? Whatever it is, but it's literally throwing, as an adult,
Yeah.
a temper tantrum. And, you know, if you let a kid have the temper tantrum, what you were saying earlier,
Right.
they felt fine afterwards because, to your point, we needed to
Release.
release.
Yes. And they become exhausted, like I would. And I'd be like, okay, I'm so over this, you know, because it does take, that's why I say anger is a strong emotion, because you just lock up all those emotions in there. And it's just like, oh my God, like you start to do things that you don't even know why, because you're so angry.
Right.
You know, like when I get really pissed off and I can't do anything, I start cleaning. And I start doing the dishes and mopping the floor. And I'm like, ah, damn. You know, and I'm like, wow, this is really clean. So, so it's like, you know, okay.
You turned
know,
it around and made it beneficial for everyone.
I know.
You're so good that way, Marcia.
I thank you so much. I didn't want to kill nobody. That's why I was like, let me refocus this energy, because, and that's now. I mean, like I said, I was mentioning before, you know, when I was younger, you know, I think I had more of the energy to be more angry, and because it takes a lot of energy to be angry, you know, and it's the yelling and the screaming. It's all depending on how a person, you know, reacts to their anger, right? Because different people could react differently to it, and they could, you know, do different things. But my thing was really either I got into a fight with somebody, or a physical fight, and I'm talking about like when I was teenagers, you know, yeah, or I would, you know, just curse somebody out. And I think the best release for me was cursing that.
Oh, it's the best.
Karen, you know, and it was just using those F words and those O's, like,
Amen.
and I would make up words just to make it double hurtful for them, you know, and I was like, wow, you know, that was really strong. But because you got me to that level so damn bad, you know, and you hurt me so much, like I wanted to hurt you back.
Right.
And it was just like, you ain't gonna get away with this shit. You're gonna hear from me, you know. And it's like I'm going to show you how pissed off you got me, you know. And that was the level of anger that I used to fall into that. And it's crazy because, like I said before, like anger has different levels. And, one of the first, because when I was a child, I was just a child. My mother would smack me, hit me, okay, it's over. But as I got older and getting into my teenage years, what really got me pissed off, it was basically a loss of my dad, and, I was 13, 14 years old. And I didn't understand too much why, but I just knew that he wasn't here. And it was just, and I felt like I took that anger and I pointed that anger towards my mom. And although it wasn't her fault, because he died of a second stroke, and I pointed that towards my mom, and I gave her all the hell, and I gave her all the grief, and I took her to where I would find her crying because she didn't know what to do with me. And that's how enraged I was, and it was powerful. And it took me down to a level where it wasn't a good path, because I was so angry that this man was not here anymore, So, I started to, just to mess up on a lot of things. But as I've gotten older now, I realized why that I was so angry in those years, in my earlier years. And I noticed that it was because of my anger. And loss is also one of those things. Trauma is one of those things. Depression, sadness, sorrow, so many things could bring out that emotion, But, I love my mama. And I said, I'm sorry. But she knew, she knew why.
Right.
And but you realize at the moment when you're in that feeling, you don't realize the cause and the damage that you can give to somebody else, because you're in your own emotion, you're in your own feeling. You just don't care. You want to release that, and you can hurt someone in the process of that because of being so angry, and but you don't see it in the moment that's happening.
True.
In that moment, so. It was just a little tidbit of my experience of emotion. The anger.
I love that you shared that. I love that you shared that because I share that with you, a loss early in life.
Yes.
And we all know that anger is one of the stages of grief.
Yeah.
So it's natural to have anger at some point around a loss. And what I found really interesting as you were sharing what you were talking about is that I, on the other hand, oppressed my anger to the point where I felt nothing. And so when people made me angry, it was not visible on my face.
Right.
But I was in my mind thinking, okay, I'm poisoning you.
Yes.
Right? And I
kill you with a smile.
I actually did once pour something inappropriate in someone's drink.
Oh my God.
Excuse me, to make them sick, and I was successful
Mayra.
at making them sick. And
Mayra.
Wow, Mayra.
Oh, hold your bottle.
I'm just going to say, my water's over there. Are we okay?
that's transparency. When you get to
Yeah,
50 plus, you're transparent about it.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
like,
You're right. You're right. Care less.
Oh my God.
So, but it's again very interesting to see that those extremes occur, right? We can both oppress anger to the point where we don't feel it. It's still doing its damage,
Right.
but we don't have awareness of it.
Yeah.
At the same time, as we can go to the absolute opposite extreme, and everybody can tell
Yeah.
Right.
that something is happening, and then there's all this collateral damage,
Yeah.
right? So the reality is that negative expressions of anger create damage. Internal or external, it's still doing exactly the same destructive
Yep.
thing. And that's what's so valuable about learning and growing past the point of being destructive for the sake of being destructive.
I should say yes.
Right, but actually learning I'm more valuable than the anger I'm feeling, so I will look underneath that so I don't destroy myself.
right, right,
The people around me are also valuable, and I need to be cognizant of the value of human life around me. Therefore, I need to find a healthier expression of
definitely.
this
Yeah.
experience, this anger.
That, and like you were talking before about triggers, but it's also to your point, it could be that whatever something they said, there was a trigger in me. You know what I'm saying? Or you know what I'm saying? In that person
Right,
that elicited that anger.
right.
And so what I now call it, because I like you, Marcy, I mean, they were curse words that probably, who knows, I made up. But like now,
Thank you.
but now I'm in the sense like you are, Myra, where I call it the power of the pause.
Mm,
So it's like, okay, was there a trigger that happened? Like instead of reacting, because a lot of times that's the other thing, when people are angry, when the emotion of anger shows up, immediately there's a response or a reaction towards it.
right.
But if you have the power of the pause, even in my own anger, like even what happened here, like what's going on here? Why am I, you know what I mean? Just like a little audit, if you will, before there's a response.
Right, right.
Then at least even the person who's expressing anger to me, or the one, or I'll maybe not express my anger in that moment, because at that moment it's like, you know what, it's not worth it, because
Right.
it doesn't really elicit that response.
How does it affect us mentally, though? Like, because it's an emotion, is it attached to it's mental? Right.
Well, I think it is so, but I think storing it and holding on to it and not expressing it is part of the mental part.
Right.
Is part of the I'll just say issue, because I can't think of another word right now. Because like you were saying, Myra, it's energy, emotion. So expressing emotions, healthy. Rage rooms. I love rage rooms.
I heard of those.
Rage rooms, literally, guys, if you don't know what a rage room is,
I've heard of
you know,
those.
because anger, it's not like when, by the way, I would like to say, like, I'm not saying not get rid of anger, because, and I'm far from perfect in that respect. Like, I still get pissed off. I still get angry. I still have the emotion. But in terms of Marcy, what you're saying in mental health, I was stewing, when I was stewing, and when I was playing it over and over again, my mental health was affected because I couldn't think of anything else.
Right.
And I was just hostile all the time, and like I had no joy. I was negative all the time. And it's like, you know what? It's like all the bad things that happen is because that's what you're focusing on. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's going to be a bad day. And I'm angry at this, and I'm angry at the world, and I'm angry at and so I'm angry all the time. And so and my posture and like my body is so constricted.
Yeah.
And so of course it was literally affecting everything,
Right.
mental health included. And when I started personal development and really understanding what was going on, and now mindset work and all the things, it's like, oh, that makes sense, and that's why I was reacting in that way and that kind of a thing. So it affects me a little bit differently now, because I can at least release it in a healthy way and get it out of my system. And like a rage room, like, it's phenomenal. You literally go to this place and you break stuff. Like, literally, that's exactly what you do.
I could save
And
my
like
China.
they have crowbars and like literally, like, for real.
Yeah.
But it's a great way to get stuff out, and then you feel good. So to the point of my mental health being affected and my whole body being constricted, now I'm like, wait a minute, I can get this out of my system. Or like, I'm a verbal processor, so sometimes I just need to spew. I don't journal. Let me get it out. I don't need anybody giving me any advice. Just spew it out.
Well, that was my next question, basically. It was like, how do you find ways of diffusing it? And what you said about that room was, it's amazing. But some people can't get to that. So what would be another better way besides the rage room in that formation where you can release that anger and be able to, to diffuse it? Because, you find yourself sometimes in situations that might, maybe someone will say something to you. And because when somebody says something to me, like, I used to react real quick, but now if somebody says something to me, I kind of take in a second to say, did you really say that to me? And I'm like, my brain starts to go like, should I get up and fuck up this person right now? Or should I just, like, okay, let me respond in a different way. Maybe I'll come out with some snarky, smart, remark right back, and they may not like what I say, and then that will escalate the situation. But how would you be able to find a way to diffuse that, to be able to, like, okay, in your brain you would know, okay, let me not let me not,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, I'll go and then Maria, you can go. But I just because to your point, a lot of times I was sarcastic was amazing. That was like but sarcasm a lot of things is also an adaptive behavior. We're doing it for a reason, right?
Right.
But but in terms of just that, it's like also where is it coming from them? Where
Right.
is that coming from them? So
Right.
like if it, you know what I'm saying, and it could be something that triggered in me. So in that respect to what you were saying, but also, but yeah, I mean, listen, there are times just have to, but nonetheless,
She said you just have to.
nonetheless, well, because it's also I think normal to like I don't think
To
we should,
respond to
you
it?
know what I mean. Sometimes I also feel like we think, oh my God, like even like as a mindset coach, I'm like, no, it has to be, I'm not going to react. I'm going to do this, and sometimes we're just human, and it happens, and that's okay. So I just
Right.
want to point that out, but. The ways that there are a myriad of ways, but my favorites, if you can't get to a rage room, because I can't always get to a rage room either, is literally taking a pillow and either like, just smashing it, punching it, or something like that. Hitting it because like I sometimes I want to get physical, so like hitting a pillow or
Yeah.
something like that is really
Yeah.
really helpful. Screaming
Mm.
is phenomenal, and I have an actual
Yes.
way where you can scream into your arm and things like that. If you like journaling is a good way to do that. If you don't like journaling, if you're like me, like I verbal process, like I just even if it's sometimes it's to no one.
Right.
I don't necessarily need someone to talk to. Sometimes
Right.
I'm just angry and pissed off, and I just need to get it off my chest, and I just start talking,
Okay.
and things like that. And I also think we were talking earlier, levity. Levity's fun, people. Fun. Like even if we're angry about something, sometimes just doing something weird and ridiculous, whatever it is in that moment,
Yeah.
will help. And and then my last one will be dancing because I dance on social media. And it's one
Yes,
of my
you
favorite
do.
things ever. I'm a huge disco fan. I think dancing also is a really great way to release, the release anger. So there are things that you could do,
Yeah.
in the presence of your own home.
Yeah. What do you think, Myra?
Well, it all depends on what kind of anger I'm experiencing.
Yes.
But I learned several things. In my first marriage, I remember one time I got so angry, so rageful. I opened the cabinets of the kitchen and I just took every dish and threw it on the floor.
Yes,
Every
good.
dish, every cup. I mean, it just went on for like probably 40 minutes,
Oh my goodness. You
I-
had nothing left.
pretty much. And then I felt so relieved.
Yes.
I felt so relieved. It was intuitive to do that action. I didn't think about it,
Right.
but intuitively I did it, and I felt so relieved. And then I looked around me and saw the dishes everywhere and thought, oh no, I have to clean that up. And so the process of actually cleaning up all the destruction
Yeah.
did not feel as good as that first relief
Yeah.
wave felt. But it did allow me to realize that I hadn't released in a long time. Like I hadn't released anything in
So it
so
was
long. So
backed
just
up, right?
just experiencing release at all was amazing, right? So I really believe that naturally our bodies know.
Right.
It positions us to like when we have hit
Yes.
the top of the line, like you can't go any further,
Right.
right? Whether it's mentally or emotionally,
Right.
our bodies does have the capacity and wisdom to shut down,
Yeah.
or to bring us, guide us into whatever that next action is,
Right.
because our bodies are always trying to heal itself,
Yeah.
regardless of whether we're helping in that process or not.
Right.
It's still happening. So that's a picture of that moment for me.
Yeah.
My body took over and said, hey, it's time. Boom, 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 right? Later on, when I got into Chinese medicine,
Right.
one of the tips that I learned in a program that I did that was based on martial arts and that I share with people is called the Dragon's Way. And one of the tips there was throwing eggs.
Really?
Like
that makes sense.
grabbing a
actually.
bunch of eggs and throwing
Really?
them against the wall. It is amazing. Sometimes I live by the beach. Sometimes I grab a couple dozen of white eggs and I go out there and I just throw them, and just hearing that egg just crack and
Oh my
explode,
God.
it just really, again, allows that release to happen. Another way that let's say you don't want to throw eggs because food is, you don't want to waste food. You know, you have an
Right.
issue with that. You can also do that with balloons. You can blow up balloons. You can sit on those balloons.
And
You
pop
can pop
them.
them with
Oh,
your
yeah.
feet. It also gives you that same kind of feeling of
Yeah.
release.
Wow.
And it's a fun way
Yeah.
of getting to that.
Oh, wow.
So I did a lot of that when I first got into
Yeah.
Chinese medicine and to healing,
Yeah.
because I had really impacted my menstrual cycle
I see.
by suppressing so much anger.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I bled. I mean, you know, since we're
Yes.
talking to 55 plus, right?
Yes, yes, please.
I hemorrhaged for like over a year
Wow,
Wow.
that's crazy.
every day, and
And that was just oppressing all of that.
well, one of the things I learned through traditional Chinese medicine principles is that from their perspective, from holistic medicine, from their part of holistic medicine,
Right.
anger is the emotion related to the liver,
Oh, the liver. Yeah,
and
it
liver
makes
is
sense.
all about flow,
Yeah.
and blood in a woman's life. So when we suppress and oppress all that
Yes.
energy, that powerful, strong energy, it does
It affects
impact negatively
That's
It
interesting.
does.
the feminine flow.
you. Wow, that's you know what? That puts a lot of things in perspective for me.
So it
Because-
made my life so much more difficult, right? I
Yeah.
mean, a lot of more pain, a lot
Right.
lot
I mean,
more
literally hemorrhaging,
resistance,
right.
a lot of problems. So that was a really powerful thing that I learned, and once I learned that,
Yeah.
I was far more focused about finding ways to
Yes.
to do more of
Right.
that release. And then, of course, I needed extra support with herbs and acupuncture and all
Right.
kinds of other things, right?
Right.
But I did my own contribution to my own healing, and that made a big difference in
Right.
my life. And as a result, I was able to go through the transition, so they say, with a lot more
Sounds way better than it really is.
peace, right? A lot more peace, and
Yeah.
that's so valuable, because the earlier we start
Right.
correcting our path,
Right.
right, the better the next decade is, and the next decade
That's
after
a
that,
great point.
right?
That's a good
So I
point.
got into these things in my late 20s. So I had done some damage, but not the kind of damage that was irreversible,
Right.
right? And I think that our bodies, in essence, can go a long distance before things are irreversible.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So true.
But it is like money, right? If you accrue a really big debt, you're gonna be in debt a lot longer,
Oh,
even
yeah.
if you're working
Right.
on wealth building.
That is so true. That is so true, and that's a great point. You just don't realize the damage that it can cause you while you're in that stage of mind. You know, that state of mind. You know, because it's like I said before, it's like you're in that emotion at that moment. You just don't realize, you know, the damage that you're causing for it. You know, so what do you think? Like, taking the situations that we probably went through that got us to that angry stage and that angry point, like you were throwing the dishes and all that stuff. And now that we're in this stage of our life, what will be different? Like,
What would be different?
what is different than being in our 20s and 30s to now?
It's not worth it.
There
not
you
worth
go,
it.
right? It's not
I
worth
never
it.
understood when people were like, in 50, it's fabulous, and blah, blah, blah. Never got it. Then I turned 50. I'm 55 for the record. I'm like, oh my God, 50 is amazing because you don't give a crap. It's like the best thing ever. But it's so true. You give less crap.
Yeah.
Like literally, I wanted to say the F word, but I didn't.
Thank you.
But you do.
Yes.
And I think that is part of it. And I think what I see happening as well. Like I started my health journey 8.5 years ago, so I was in my late 40s. So I think a lot of women also have recognized, and I think it's so much more prevalent now in 2024,
Yeah.
that the Gen Xers, I think, right? Gen Xers or Gen Xers?
Yes. Yes. Gen X.
A lot of things that happen to us because it's big T trauma, little T trauma, whatever. How we grew up. I mean, I was a latchkey kid. I literally had the shoelace around my neck with the key, the whole thing. I was 9. my brother was 13. My mom went back to work. There's trauma with that. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And you know what I mean? And my point being, like, and I was resentful and I was angry at my mother for going back to work and like, how dare she go back to work? I mean, you know what
Right.
I mean? Like,
Yes.
that's just
Yes.
an example. And but what I'm finding now is that in our later years, per se, midlife,
Mm-hmm.
that it's also where society makes it like we should be like one foot in the grave, and we're like, yeah, screw that. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like, I
yes.
think a lot of us, like you're with the church, I think it's more open now
Yeah.
that we're having the conversations about what people are doing, and people are like, wait a minute, I've been feeling this way for so long, and there's a lot more things even on social media and avenues where people are like, no, I do breath work and I do this way and I do this because I was so tired of feeling the way I felt and living the way I lived and all these kind of things. So in our mid 50s, we're just like, we're growing, we're healing,
Yeah.
we're enjoying. And
Yeah.
and the thing is also, because we were so angry and we were so pissed off and so negative,
Yeah.
now it's like, wait a minute, I can actually enjoy life. Like, there's joy. Like, none of us are getting out of here alive anyway.
Yeah.
So let me have some fun with it. Like, let me enjoy life. What do I want to do? What's joyful to me? I was so busy taking care of other people, my ex-husband, my kids, all these things I forgot about me.
Yeah.
Who am I? Who are
Yeah.
you?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us are now starting, and including myself,
Yeah.
I'm divorced and have my kids are older, so I'm
Right.
like empty nester and single at 55 for the first time in 30 years. I'm like, I'm like, who the hell's Caren? Even though even though I'm a coach and mindset coach.
Right. Right.
But it's like I can look at it from the lens of, oh my God, who's Caren? Or I can look at it, oh my God, you know what I mean? And there's both.
Yes.
And I think and that's the beauty of, number one, mindfulness and personal development and understanding it, but also being in this type of age where it's like, whatever, it doesn't matter.
Well, we never been this age before.
Well, that's the
this
other
is
thing
something
too.
new, right? So it's like, you think when you're younger, you're like, okay, when I get older, and you're
Right.
like, but when we're here, and it's like, oh, I never been this age before. Like, you don't even know sometimes how to act.
Well,
So it's like you have a battle in your mind. Like, should I act 30 or should I act 50?
But why does it matter? But like, to your point, and I promise I'll let you speak my. But like, I hate. No offense to you, but like,
No, of
why?
course,
Why
yeah.
though? But like, why does it matter? Like, when people say to me, "Act my age," I'm like, why? First of all, what does it matter? Like, I want to act like I'm 12 years old. What's the harm? I want to go roller skating at night. What's the big deal? Like, I don't understand. Like,
I know.
why is it that's the point? I think that's also the point
Yeah.
that a lot of us are questioning. Like, well, why? I know I do. Because I'm like, and it's not even out of anger. It's like, you know what? It doesn't mean like, oh my God, well, they did that at this age. I'm like,
I there's a lot of
it's
ageism
there's
too.
a lot of, don't even get me started. Don't even go there.
With the
'Cause
ageism.
Myra won't get a chance to speak.
She
'Cause-
will.
But I experienced that when I was in corporate America.
Oh yes.
So
I came from there too.
100%
It was-
experienced that in
yes.
corporate America, and it was ridiculous. But it taught me, but to that point, it taught me a huge lesson of,
Yeah.
whatever. But like, it's you should be this and whatever. And that's the other thing, you're not supposed to shit on you. I teach people not to shit on themselves. You know what I mean? Because you should be whatever. But I think in the 50s and later on in life, we care less, but we're also more open.
Yeah.
What I mean is, when I care, we're like whatever, but we're also more open to, like, when you said traditional Chinese medicine, I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Old me would have been like, oh, and throw my, judge and that kind of a thing. So I think, to your point, Marcy, asking the question, is like, that's what it is in our mid 50s. We're like, well, what we did in our teens, 20s, and 30s, and sometimes 40s didn't serve us,
Yeah.
didn't help us any.
Right.
And now maybe I want to live the next half of my life a little bit differently.
It's a second chapter in our lives.
Right.
Right? Because after you hit that 50, it's like, okay, the 20s, 30s, and 40s are out the window. Here we go, 50s, 60s, and 70s, So it's like a second chapter. I feel like when you hit that point, it's like it's a reflection of what to do and what not to do, right? Because we're supposed to grow older and know and learn from the lessons that life has taught us from those age brackets. And some people do grow, and some people just stay stagnant, and they're thinking in their mind that they're still 20s and 30s, but it's all depending on the type of person that you are. But once you get that, because let me tell you, when I turned 40, I partied my ass off. I did the biggest damn party there was. I don't care, I'm 40. And then it's like I'm 50. I'm like, holy shit, I'm here. So it's like, oh my God, like what? And so you start to really think, like, okay, what do I got to start planning for, besides a a burial plot in life insurance, you know? So it's like, you know, you need that, but what do you start, you know? And I retired at an earlier age. 45, I was already done. And it's like I didn't want to stay home and do nothing with my life. I wanted to go out and apply the things that I've learned in life into my new chapter. And I was able to say, okay, now that I have all this time in the world, you know, what am I going to do? You know, I don't want to stay home, be cooking and cleaning and grow 300 pounds and not do anything. You know, I wanted to stay active. I wanted to be able to continue, you know, doing. And I reintroduced myself into my passion of photography. And then, of course, you know, other endeavors came along with that. But I'm like, Marcy, you forgot what you used to love to do. And it's like, get back in there, you know, slowly but surely, you know. And I've always loved that. I always loved photography. I always loved to be able to be creative and create things. But I never had the freaking time to do it because I was always working in corporate America and raising children and you know, dealing with home, husband, you know, and all that. So you look back and into your 30s and your 40s, I'm like, wow, you know, so much time has passed. And it's like when you really start reflecting, because I do have a lot of friends that are, of course, in my age group, and they tell me the same thing, you know. So it's something that you know, that you reflect on, you know, and it's like, okay, I'm here. Okay, watch out, world. Watch out, world. But as far as, you know, the emotion that we're talking about is do we really need that anger? What about if nobody's ever angry? What about if we live in a world where there's no anger, everything is tra-la-la, you know?
You know, I want to say something to that.
Yes, please.
I think that the world would be less joyful if there was not anger. I think anger is an important emotion, as important as all the others. I just really think that we have a responsibility
Right.
to teach people the appropriate ways of
Yes.
relating to their emotions
Right.
and relating to others.
Right.
Right. And I think,
Amen.
like, when I was growing up, I remember that there was so much information out there that was about teaching tolerance and teaching social responsibility and being really mindful about unifying
Right.
the country, as an example. You know, it was
Right.
like the house divided falls, right?
Yes.
And I think that that's what happens when we don't have a real relationship with ourselves,
Right.
a genuine, authentic, intimate relationship with ourselves. We are deficient.
Yeah.
We are already living life in a fragmented state. We're
Right.
not whole, right? So I think anger really allows us to know ourselves better, just like every other emotion. And when we resist one, we resist all. I mean, that's just the way it is. If we put a door towards one and we say, I won't feel angry, before you know it, you don't feel anything.
Yeah.
And I know that because that happened to me.
Right.
Right. And then when you live in that space of numbness, then anything really goes because you have no connection to what is harmful.
Right.
You don't even like recognize it. That's when people start cutting themselves because they
Yes.
want to feel. I mean, we are human beings. Emotions are actually a gift.
Yeah.
They're a gift for us.
Yeah.
And they give us an opportunity, just like our senses, to experience and explore the world and know what it is to be human.
Right.
Right? This is a positive thing.
Right.
Great point.
We need to be better at sharing
Right.
information with others so that we all collectively can experience this earth in a more joyful way.
Yes.
Right? Without destroying the parts that really, in essence, nurture us, right? Because without the earth, we can't survive as human beings.
Exactly.
And without each other, we can't survive. We are community-based individuals. None of us makes it alone.
Exactly.
We all need someone. And so it's intimacy that really
Right.
provides the pathway towards that. So to your question, in my first marriage, yes, I was angry, and it came to that space where it was either the dishes or me, and I chose the dishes.
The dishes.
Right? Something had to go.
Something had to go, definitely.
Right? And because I was in that space of, okay, when I'm angry enough, I feel justified to kill someone else.
Yeah,
I mean, I didn't actually kill them.
I know.
Just want to make sure everybody knows. But I definitely thought about it, and I definitely
Yes.
created visions, and I mean, I went so far as to harm someone,
Mm,
right?
right.
So I really think it's very, very important to acknowledge how far one is willing to go,
Yeah.
and really, really question
Right.
ourselves about that.
Yes.
Because I think I'm a very heart-centered person and a very sensitive person.
Right.
But in my numb state, I did not know that about myself.
Right.
Right.
Right? So I could have done damage like that and then gone, what did I do? Right?
Right.
Right? And because that's what happens. Sometimes the emotion is so strong, it carries you like a great wave into a drowning situation.
Oh yeah, definitely. It
So
can.
it's really important to know the power that we have inside,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
In that emotion, and also the possibility of transforming it into real strength and power that can be positive and useful and life affirming for ourselves and others, right? So I just recently got married, as you know,
Yes.
and
Hey, Chip.
that's right, holler to Chip.
Yeah.
And and what I'm discovering in my second marriage is that I can find great strength in
Yes.
gentle expressions of correction. Like I can actually have that conversation with my husband today
Right.
that allows me to respect myself and respect him and still get my points across. The places where we have conflict, I'm still able to navigate that without losing what matters most.
Right.
Right?
And that's respect
but I didn't
also.
have that
Yeah.
in the first marriage.
Right.
I didn't understand
Right.
that in the first time. So to your question, that's what the that's the benefit to me of the wisdom and the knowledge
Yep.
and the road that I've been on. It has allowed me to have this experience. So yes, 50 plus, I'm much more joyful. I'm much more willing to
Yes.
be open, as you said. I'm much more
Yes.
willing to explore,
Right.
to experiment, to try new things, to just be human. I'm
Yes.
actually more comfortable in my humanity
Yes.
and
Yeah.
able to share the humanity of another, understanding that there's great perfection in that imperfect state.
Yeah.
Right, that we
definitely.
can still be learning and growing and moving,
Right.
and it's exciting, and it doesn't have to all be
Right.
right and perfect all the time. And
Exactly.
I don't have to fight with such
Right.
Right.
fear
Right.
that there's scarcity, that there's not enough.
Great point.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
also, that's a really great point. And I just want to piggyback on something you just said about your first marriage, about anger and stuff like that. I didn't do any like smashing of plates and things like that, but there was a lot of anger
Try
and
it.
resentment. There was a lot of anger and resentment on my
Yes.
part,
Yes.
no question.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of the things that I see now is, number one, that I took responsibility for my own anger and resentment towards him.
Right.
So I can do that now, understanding that now. But also, even though he doesn't do a lot of personal development, things like that, he can do the same. And we could also acknowledge that
Right.
and move past that
Right.
and be human to each other.
Right.
You know what I mean? Even though we're not married to each other. And I think that's also, because, that's also part of being in middle age, and to your point, acknowledging the anger and understanding the emotion and things like that. And I think, like you were saying, Myra, all emotions are, all anger, all of them deserve a place in this world.
Right.
So it doesn't have to go away. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? I don't think it has to go away at all. But it's also the awareness of it, and what does it do, and what are you doing with it, and like you were saying, like be present with it and aware of it, and also, by the way, don't shame. Even if you do get angry, even if it does happen, there's no shame in it. There's no beating yourself up about it or anything like that. It happened, and what can I do to move forward?
Right.
What can I do differently to move forward from the next time? Because it's a disempowering state. And if we live in a disempowering state, it's either empowering or disempowering states we live in,
Right.
and all the emotions are in those states,
Right. Definitely.
and they have a place.
Definitely. It does, because it's part of being human, right? Like you
Yeah.
said.
Yeah.
So it's something.
And just because,
Go ahead.
excuse me, just because we talked about it before, and I didn't mention it now, but for your listeners, that question that I was taught by my therapist, when I feel angry,
Mm-hmm.
to ask myself, what is worth defending?
Right.
Because we only get angry about something we're trying to defend.
Great point.
That is true. That
Where
is true.
it's it either is a boundary, it either is a value, it could be an interest, it could be affection. I mean, those we're trying to get something
Definitely.
back or avoid something being taken away. That's what we're doing. And if we don't know that,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
then we miss an opportunity to learn
Right.
more about what moves us, what is of value to us in this world, and then correct whatever needs to be corrected so that we can be on that path.
Right.
Definitely. And I agree with that. Definitely. I think it also is depending on the person that you're around with, your surroundings. Some people could bring the best out of you, and they could bring the worst out of you.
That's true.
And
That's true.
and it's your decision to decide whether you want to be around those people or not.
Very true.
Because it's like, you go somewhere and you're like, oh, there she is. She's going to piss me off. And it's like, or here he comes with his BS, And it's like, it's like you have to mentally prepare yourself, because that person is going to give you a trigger.
You know what?
But-
I got to stop you right there. I got to stop you right there because
Myra.
this is
Apparently, we both feel strongly to
because
go.
this is very, very important, and I had to recognize this about myself, right?
Yes.
Mhm.
The world is full of gifts,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And some of those gifts can look like a bait.
That's
bait,
true.
right? As you're walking through, and we have the choice of whether we
Correct.
pick that up
Yeah.
and carry it in our gunny sack, or we leave it where it is, right? And I
Right.
had to learn that, right? Because we get wounded in relationship and we heal in relationship. That's just the way it
Right.
is. We are
Right.
relationship-based people.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely was well practiced at giving my power away
Mm-hmm.
to another person that was just
Mm-hmm.
setting
Right.
it, basically being themselves, but dropped a bait, right?
Yes.
And I would fall into that bait constantly. And
Mhm.
until I actually realized that that person was like a teacher in my life, right? Because through that difficult relationship, I learned to strengthen
Right.
myself. I learned to
take your power back.
recognize how to put boundaries on myself sometimes,
Right.
because the habit of giving my power away was so strong.
Right.
But it was a habit
Mm.
that I had that I just practiced for
Right.
a long enough that it was
Yeah.
was just
It was
you know,
normal.
automatic, right?
It was automatic,
Like you
right.
ever get in a car and you're thinking about something else and you show up somewhere else and you go, this isn't where I was going.
Yes.
Has that ever happened to you?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Because our minds can sometimes go on automatic and we drift out of the path that we wish to be on.
That's so
it's just the
true.
way it is.
Yeah.
And people
Yes.
that we meet along the road
Mm-hmm.
are also doing the best to keep themselves on their patterns and their
Right.
paths,
Right.
right? But we all have that tendency to sometimes get hypnotic
Yeah.
It happens.
and drift away from the path and then need to course correct, right? So when we come back into awareness, we have that opportunity, and that's just going to happen forever. Like none of
100%.
us is ever going to be able to always be 100% present, 100% aware,
Right.
but we can be more present today, more aware of ourselves today than we were yesterday.
Right.
Yes.
We can make progress, and
Yes.
progress is good enough.
Yes.
Right.
And I agree with that, because I feel like, like you said, you don't want to give that power away, so it's like it takes a lot of control for you not to be able to give that power away, because you're like, okay, I'm not going to react. I'm not gonna be falling into that trap.
Well, yeah.
You know?
Right. But you can also, like, what I do is also, I'm not available. So even if that person's going to be that person, because that's the way they are, I'm not available for this. Like, that's the boundary you can then set to them
Right.
and say, I'm not, they can, if they want to come and complain or whatever, I'm not available for this right now.
Right.
And I'm saying we have that choice in which to say that, because sometimes we can't avoid it. But it's also one of the things that I teach also is I teach like going high, like perspective. So something called going high,
Right.
where you basically picture yourself walking in an elevator,
Mm-hmm.
hitting a number like 108, and then you're going up and you're in this elevator and you're looking down at and so your perspective shifts a little bit.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean? So even though that person is, you're on this healing and growth journey, and maybe they're not, you can be like, well, they're not on this journey, and like, this is, how they are at the moment,
Right.
and maybe even have compassion for them.
Right.
You know what I mean? From that perspective, it's just because that's their journey for them.
Right. Right.
So it's also a question of, you're always going to be around some. I don't want to say always, but there's going to be times where there's going to be people that just piss you off. There are.
Yeah.
I do believe that, because even though we're on a growth, healing, and expansion journey, that people will have certain triggers on you, and it's really, you have the power and the choice of what you're going to do with that.
Definitely. I agree.
And the awareness, and if you have the awareness to to choose to engage with it or not.
Let me tell you, I'm very happy that we're in a stage where, in a state, in a new era where there's a lot of help now. I feel like 20, 30 years ago, mental health wasn't really so much into a big thing. I think that now there is. And why think that? Because of how the world has changed. And I just wish that, like, in the 70s and 80s, I think we should have had a little bit more of mental health awareness. But because of the fact that we were raised with an older generation that thought differently on how to react to things and how to take things, that was passed down to us, right? So we grew up with that mind state and thinking that things that we know now that are not right, we thought that it was right then. And, when you look back at it, you're like, that wasn't right, And it's like, because why? There's more research, more data, more information, more social media, more podcast shows, more shows, more intellect on how it is to be able to control your emotions. Why does your emotions take you to a state of, it could take you to a state of even alcoholism and drugs, and we didn't understand that, and now we look at it and such in a different point of view, right? Because not because we're in our 50s, but because of the fact that we're just living in this era, and it's so different to what it was 30, 40 years ago. So I'm grateful for that, because now I look back and I even go back and tell my mom, like, I tell her, lady, you was wrong. You messed me up. And she looks at me like, what? And it's just an awareness now that we have more of that, and we're able to know when somebody is in frustration and need of help, because when you're angry all the time, you around a person that's angry all the time, you seriously need help. You really need to be aware of that person and how they react towards you, because it could be a trigger for anything. And I'll be like, okay, that person needs help, and you try to bring that to light to them, and you're trying to let them know what is going on. What is going on with you in your mind? Why is it that you're easily triggered? you know, and you see that person going down to doing things that, in order for them to ease their own anger, they go into either different paths. And I'm talking about drug addiction, alcoholism too. And I really feel that when they're unable to express themselves, they turn to these things, and it's dangerous because now you're shifting and you're going into a dangerous path, and you try to pull them back in, and you're trying to be able to help them, you know, and trying to, because you're recognizing, they're not recognizing it, but you're recognizing it. And that's why I'm saying, like, it comes into the form of anger management. What anger management is, what is there for, to express, to help you pinpoint where your anger is coming from. And I think a lot of that is available now, and because it wasn't back in the days. And I think it was, that's why so many things happened in people's lives, because they didn't know where to turn. Now it's easily found where you can find these services and be able to guide that person into that way, you know, into anger management and therapy, and just to be there, you know, just to help give them an open platform where they're able to be able to express themselves. And that is so important, because I think, like I said before, there's just a lot of that going on in that perspective.
I think you put a really great point out there, and the thing that I want to add to that is that, you know, these are coping strategies,
Yeah.
right? And I think the biggest thing that has happened in the last few years is that there's so much information happening that we can't turn our brains off,
Yeah.
right? And something negative happens when we can't turn our brains off. Like, the reality is that we need to be able to go through the process of taking something in and then allowing ourselves to digest it. But if we're taking way more in than we can actually digest,
Right.
then a negative thing happens.
Right.
And the thing is that some people get very caught up in taking in information, but then they don't explore or apply. They don't
Right.
go through that process. So the knowledge is useless to them,
Right.
Right.
right? And then there's also the reality that none of us can control or change someone else. We can
Right.
only really change ourselves. Caren and I are coaches, but we can't force a client to move to success, right?
Correct.
The client still has to do their own work
Absolutely.
to
Yes.
contribute to their
100%.
own health and well-being. We only can guide, we can reflect, we can share information, we can support the process of digesting that information even.
Yes.
But we cannot ever really use our wisdom to guide someone else's life to the extent that my wisdom is going to work for you. You know,
Right.
the wisdom comes from applying the knowledge, digesting it, and then you find your own
Right.
your
And
own way
sitting with
of
it.
managing it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that's what's really, really powerful, and I agree with you. There was a lot less mainstream
Right.
Yeah.
help
Right.
20, 30 years ago, definitely 40, 50 years ago.
Yeah.
It was even more,
Suppressed.
not suppressed,
But
but harder
Stigmatized.
to approach. I
Sure,
mean,
yeah.
harder to get, right?
Right.
Because I was listening to self-help material at 16 years old.
Not the Joyce Brothers.
So that
She
was
just
a
came
really, really long time ago. I mean, there's always been something. The thing is that it didn't really catch on fire until
Right.
till now,
Right.
because the pandemic
Yeah,
really,
yeah.
really
Well, that-
created so much collective
Yeah.
stress,
Yes.
like globally,
It
Yeah.
definitely,
that
right.
that every human being was impacted so much by that event,
Right.
one way or another.
Right.
So there's got to be repercussions, and we are still in the recovery stages of that. Right?
Right.
We
Holy
still don't
cow.
even know the full effect of what those 2 years
Yeah.
did,
Yeah.
but it impacted every part of life,
Definitely.
and that's the really key thing, that idea that life is uncertain
Right.
and anything can happen at any moment is like
Right.
really in your face
Mm.
today
Mm.
in a way that it wasn't. Like before, you could really convince yourself that
Right.
nothing ever goes wrong.
Right.
Everything is like
Mhm.
whatever
Right.
I'm expecting to happen tomorrow
You're
is going to
100
happen.
no,
But yes,
100%
you know, what
on
was it
target.
yesterday that earthquake?
Yeah, earthquake
Yeah,
yesterday.
yesterday.
It's like that was like what? That was on the news like crazy. And the crazy thing for me was listening on the news that was the fourth one that had happened
Mm.
in New York this week.
Yeah.
I mean, so three of them happened. I didn't feel anything.
Yeah, I feel like I mean.
Yeah.
The fourth one, I felt it, right?
Yeah.
But I've never felt an earthquake here in New York, and I've lived here most of my life.
Right.
Yeah,
well,
same.
Well,
So
I
it's-
experienced it a few years ago.
It's surprising,
Yeah, it is.
and it jars a
it-
person and then destabilizes them, right?
Yeah.
And when we get destabilized, to me, what I notice in New York more than anywhere else is that when people get destabilized here, anger's the first.
Anger's the first, yes.
The
number
first
one.
emotion.
Yes.
Totally, totally,
It's
totally
so true.
That is so
Yes.
true.
It's the first. And then, you know, like I remember during World Trade Center,
Yes, 9/11.
people got angry, but then right after that, it was like, oh,
Mhm.
we're all
Let's
grabbing
collectively
onto
put
each
together,
other
right.
because we're trying to like make it work, right?
Yeah.
So I really do see that even though that is the first reaction in New York, that's not a lasting reaction.
Yeah.
It's just definitely how we're trained because you got to move.
Yeah.
You got to
Yeah.
move to make it.
Exactly.
And, you know, this is why they say if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere because you learn how to
Move.
how to react and move, find safety.
Definitely.
Right. Well,
That's what you're
that's-
doing. You're
moving.
You're moving, and every other right is fright, flight,
Flight, freeze, or
or
fawn.
fright. Yeah, like all the other ones keep
Yeah.
you like
Right.
a bit more passive than we
Mhm.
like to be. You know, we're a little bit
Definitely.
more aggressive,
Yes. It's true.
assertive.
It's true.
To add on, I love everything that you just said and spot on with everything that you just said. But when you were talking earlier about feeling the feelings and all that kind of stuff, I think part of what needs to happen, and I need in my own journey, I'm learning this myself, is to sit in it because it's hard to sit in the muck.
Yeah.
It really is
Yeah.
hard. So when you were talking about going down alcoholism and things like that, that may, I'm not pretending to know, but like it could also be like it is really hard to face it
Yeah. Yeah.
and deal with it
Mm-hmm.
and cope
Yes.
with it all. And so that could possibly lead to other ways to mask what's actually really going on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really also about creating safety in your body. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, you know, because your mind and body are working to keep you safe. And the minute you do something different, it's like,
Right.
nope, danger, danger, danger.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, no, I can cope. No, I know this is data. I just, it's data. I need to feel this. I need to, go through it. And once I go through it, even though feels like it's going to bring me to my knees,
Yeah.
on the other end is,
Right.
I'll feel a lot better about it. And what I want to talk about was creating safety in your body, because it's also like it's safe to feel the feelings. It's safe to be, to be
Right.
the way, expressing all the things. But when you talk about alcoholism and things like that, and a lot of times, and a lot of these emotions and the anger and all of these things are stirred up also from not feeling good about ourselves.
Right. Right.
We don't feel maybe not enough or maybe not worthy. Those are my flavors. So if I'm not feeling enough and I'm not feeling worthy, I'm giving everything away, like my power, all of it. Like that's why I was a people pleaser and things
Right.
like that. So I tend to do other things because I don't feel good about myself. And the minute somebody gives me, love and affection, oh my God, it's external circumstance, it's external
Right.
when it really needs to be internal.
Right.
We really need to be in ourselves.
Right. Definitely. I agree with that. And I agree with all of what you ladies are saying. And that's why I have you here. But we're coming close to closing the show out. I just wanted to say, we spoke about so many different emotions, so many levels, and what causes and the triggers and all that stuff. And me, I'm a person of faith. I believe in God. I believe that I could do all things through Christ that strengthens me. And some people, whatever their flavor is, like you said, of their religion, do you think that somewhere along down that anger line, where would God fit?
I think I think God fits perfectly in that line because God created us
Yes.
in His image, and I believe if we have anger, then there must be a reason and a purpose to it in God's world as well. I really, you know, I believe in God and I believe in Jesus, and I know in Jesus' story, Jesus had emotions and experienced
Yes.
his emotions and expressed his emotions, and also I remember growing up Catholic
Yeah.
and listening to a lot of "You are a sinner," and all about God's wrath, right?
Yes.
And I remember being so fearful of God and always thinking about that wrath.
Right.
And even though judgment
Yeah.
is part of the
Right.
religious
Right.
experience,
Right.
I do recognize that there's so much love
Mm-hmm.
that in the love it allows for the imperfection of humanity. I mean, I think that that's really the biggest message of God's love is that
Right.
I didn't learn that in my first religious studies. I only saw the wrath of
Right.
God. I never experienced the love of God.
Ah.
I didn't understand it was okay
Right.
for me to be imperfect
Mm-hmm.
and still
Right.
be in God's presence. I
Right.
did not understand that till way later in my life. And I mean, I don't know if I ever told you, but as a kid, my desire was to be a nun.
Oh. Okay. Yeah. I think you mentioned that.
So my spirituality and my faith is like really, really important to me,
Right.
and definitely something that I've cultivated over the years in my
Yeah.
private life, right? It was a really crazy thing in 2015 when all of a sudden I felt this urge to get baptized
Yeah.
and join a Christian church, right? It was like,
Right.
what's happening to me? Like, I don't understand this. But in that process, and from that, I mean, this month it'll be the ninth year or something like that,
Right.
of that event. And it was such a life transformative moment. And the thing that I experienced after baptism that made me know God exists
Mm.
is that before I could not control my anger.
Uh-huh. Yes.
I could not.
Right.
When the rage would come over me, my entire body would
Yeah.
shake. My voice would stammer. I'd have no opportunity to communicate. I mean, I was like stuck, right?
Yes.
And I thought, and I had done a lot of personal development work, so I had thought, I'm going to be like this forever. Like, I'll never be able to
Right.
have an intimate relationship
Right.
because I can't handle this, right? Someone's going to die.
Right.
And I'm scared.
Right.
It's not going to be me, right? That's the attitude I had. So that was my biggest prayer when I made that transition. I got baptized. I said, God, help me.
Yeah.
Help me be able to manage my anger, because the desire of my heart was to get married.
Right.
And I felt that was the biggest obstacle. So that was the first thing that I noticed in the months after my baptism. I never experienced rage like that again.
Amen to that.
I got angry,
Yeah.
but I was somehow able to still communicate, still manage myself. And actually, I learned more about myself
Yeah.
through that process. And for me, 100%, I'm like, only God could have taken that weight off
Yeah.
of me.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to come to the place to let it go also, right? I
Right.
had to like actually
Give it.
give it up.
Yeah.
And because that's part of our faith too, right?
Yes.
We have to be humble enough to admit our imperfection and ask for support in whatever area that is that we can't manage on our own.
Well, that's why I said that, because of God and because of my belief, and this is personally for me, I was able to really find that I don't have to be always reactive towards the anger, because there's other things in my life that are able to help me to be able to subside that anger. and I call it through the power of prayer. You know, so that's why I mentioned that. I don't know, Caren, if you want to close on that, or you know how you feel about that. I respect any views or feelings that you have, or any religion that you are.
So I am Jewish.
Yes, yes,
And so I grew up in a home where it was you only date Jewish people, and I didn't.
right,
And so I questioned a lot growing up with the respect of God and certain things happened in my life that I
right,
questioned it.
right,
In that respect, again, my personal belief. So even now at 55, I'm not necessarily God fearing.
mm-hmm.
I do believe in like the universe. We call it in my world. We call it Gus, God, universe, source.
Yeah,
I do believe there's a higher power,
yes,
and so like lately one of my friends was like I had some concerns, whatever, and she was like she goes, I talk to the universe
right,
and like pray to the universe and things like that, and so that's what I do on a daily basis. I talk to the universe. I'm like, hey, I'm open and ready to receive. And, I have some concerns here, some concerns there,
Right.
that kind of a thing. So I do think there's some sort of higher power at play.
right,
And to your point about the anger and things like that, I think there's signs also
Yeah.
that the higher power gives us, and whether or not we choose to see them.
right,
Because sometimes there's a meme going. I said this to somebody the other day. There's a meme going. There's a meme where somebody asked for the cake, and they got candles and and the frosting and the batter, and they're like, but God,
Yeah.
I wanted cake, and they're like, well, I gave you and they got it piece by piece and not the whole thing.
right, right.
So I think it's also recognizing that and that kind of a thing, and earlier you talked about losing your father at young ages. I lost my father actually Wednesday is 13 years ago. So I was 40. That's if I could do the math right, 42.
Yeah.
Because I'm not great at math, but he fell and hit his head and had a brain bleed and then passed away. And I was very angry about it because
Right.
my kids were 9 and 5 when my father died, and I was 10 when I lost my father's mother.
Right.
And there was a lot of anger. But when you were younger, it led you down this
Right. Anger path.
anger path. What happened with me? So talking, and this lends to the whole higher universe source,
Right.
whatever. Long story short, when he passed, I was like so pissed off and so angry, and I
Yeah.
needed to do something. My cousin taught Zumba at the time, and I stepped foot, and like a month and a half later, I stepped foot in a Zumba class. From that Zumba class, I quit smoking. I found health and wellness through isogenics, and through doing health and wellness through isogenics, I found my mentor Tracy Litt and mindset coaching, and here I am now, a mindset coach. That's a short version of the story.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Yes.
So like it led me down. So that anger
Yeah.
and that whatever, I needed to place it somewhere.
Right.
Even though I hadn't done personal development yet or anything of that sort, I knew I needed to do something with it.
Right. Right. You have
And
to.
I think that's the other thing. You don't necessarily have to do personal development. You can be aware of the fact that like I just don't want to be like this anymore.
Right.
And then you can choose what you want to do with it. And there was absolutely a higher power that led me to that
Yes.
Zumba class and led me to all. There's no question in my mind about that.
So it led you to do
You know,
redirect your energy.
It led
to
me to
that.
redirect my energy, and
Yeah.
and talking about anger, I was resentful of working in corporate.
Right.
But I had my daughter in August of '01,
Ah. Yeah.
and then went back to work, and then I was home. She
Right.
saved my ass because I was due September 13th.
Oh wow.
So she came a month early,
Yeah.
thank God. So I wasn't working in Manhattan when
Right,
the tower
yeah.
fell. But I went back to work November 1st, and I was pissed and angry and resentful about it
Yeah.
because I wanted to be home,
Yes.
and I couldn't be home. So all of that,
Right.
even though it was pent up for so long, led me here. So
Right.
now I can wait. Now I can share what I do with others and have them understand the path that they lead, and connecting the dots that even though all this crap happened,
Right.
it did work out for the higher good.
Definitely. Amen to that. That was amazing, and I loved every minute of it. Well, ladies, we have come to the conclusion, and we have to wrap up the show. But I want to let everybody know where to find you guys. If you guys want to put up your social media handles, if you have your website where they can find you, Mayra.
Excuse me. Well, my Instagram handle is La Mama Dragon,
Yes.
And you can easily find me on my website at www.dragonlifestyle.com.
Okay. Caren.
I am Caren, Caren. So my Instagram, my website is not up yet. So on Instagram, I'm Caren, Caren Cooper, Cooper with an underscore. And then on Facebook, where I also live, and LinkedIn, both my Facebook and LinkedIn are my name, Caren, Caren, and my maiden name, Schagren Cooper. So you can find me on those three platforms.
Awesome. That's great. And I'm going to have those up when we post them up on live on our website and our handles as well. Ladies, this has been so great, and I hope that anybody that was listening out there and they will listen. Like I said, if you couldn't catch the live, catch the replay. We're on our YouTube channel, social media, Facebook and Instagram. Okay, Let Your Voices Be Heard podcast show, and also on Spotify. So hope everyone enjoyed their night, and I hope whoever was watching was able to take away good things. And thank you for watching, guys. Until the next one, bye.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.